I'm Ann Simmons for the Los Angeles Times. The US military has been engaged in the war in Afghanistan for more than a decade and is now preparing to pull out its combat troops by the end of next year. It's been a tough 10 years for American service personnel. At least 2,000 have died and almost 18,000 have been injured, according to official US estimates. As the countdown to the pullout begins, there's still work to do to ensure that the Afghans are fully ready to assume responsibility for their own security. But another key concern for the remaining American troops is ensuring that they survive the next several months and make it home. Joining me to talk about the role of US forces as they wrap up their final months in Afghanistan is Times staff writer David Zucchino. David had visited the country at least 17 times over the course of his journalistic career and was there earlier this year together with Times staff photographer Carolyn Cole. Welcome, David.
Hi, Ann.
David, you've certainly had a fascinating run in Afghanistan throughout the course of your career, but now it's time for the US troops to wrap up and head home. How would you characterize their mood? What are they thinking, feeling as they head towards the finish line?
I think the overwhelming mood is one of weariness. We've been there almost 12 years this fall. It's the longest war in American history. And the guys I talk to are just ready to go home. They feel they've done what's been asked of them. They've been asked to do an almost impossible job in an incredibly difficult country under very difficult circumstances. They are ready now to turn things over to the Afghans and to let the Afghans sort it out. And they want to get home. They've been on multiple deployments. They've been away from their families. They've seen their friends killed and wounded and maimed. They're dealing with traumatic brain injuries and PTSD and all sorts of other ailments. They're ready. It's just time to go.
Well, you certainly met a lot of fascinating characters. You got up close and personal with a lot of these guys. Who stands out for you? Tell us about some of them.
Well, on this recent trip, I met a guy that was nicknamed the Bomb Whisperer. His name is Kyle Klobuchar. He's a 22-year-old kid from a small town in Minnesota, and he sort of got volunteered for the job to go out ahead of the unit when they go out on foot patrols. And he operates something called a Mind Hound, which is a little vehicle that goes out front and supposedly detects hidden bombs and buried devices. It's an extremely stressful job, and he did it great. He just, on every patrol, was there out front. His comrades put a lot of faith in him. We went out with them on what turned out to be their last patrol, and these guys were very apprehensive, very nervous about going out one last time. He pulled them through, and he got a nice round of applause when they all got back home safely.
Well, you've certainly gotten a really close and personal view of what these soldiers go through. How are you able to get so up close and personal?
Well, the embedding process began actually shortly after the Afghan war started. The Pentagon decided, after pushing for years from the news media to let reporters embed with troops. There was a lot of suspicion and hostility at first, but over the years now the troops are so accustomed to journalists being there, they are quite open, especially the lower ranking troops who are very comfortable, they'll tell you what they're thinking, they'll show you what they're doing. There is still quite a bit of control that's attempted by the higher ups because they're more invested in showing progress, whereas the guys on the ground will tell you openly and honestly what they think and what they're doing. Well, it's very rewarding to actually get out there and see these guys. They're extremely well trained, they're very professional, and they're very dedicated to what they're doing.
And moving now to the Afghan soldiers, how prepared are the Afghans as the US prepares to pull out? Are they ready to take responsibility for their own safety?
I have to tell you honestly, I have serious doubts, and so do a lot of the American soldiers. They have been trying to train these guys for almost 10 years now, and I've been covering this for the last 10 or 11 years. And every time I go over there, I talk to the Americans, and they say, wow, they're just about to turn the corner. Well, I don't think they've turned the corner. They have huge problems. The vast majority of them are illiterate. There's a lot of drug use. There is a lot of desertion. The Taliban have infiltrated a lot of the ranks, and of course we've all heard about the insider attacks, which is a huge problem. There's growing suspicion and mistrust between the ordinary American troops and the Afghan troops. Part of it is cultural differences, and I think part of it is just because the U.S. has been there so long. There's a lot of resentment. Afghans are very resentful of outsiders or foreigners, and over the centuries they have fought off foreigners. They don't want them there. They're ready for us to leave for the most part.
Right.
The troops are just going to have to do the best they can with what they have. I mean, the U.S. has spent billions of dollars on this army, and we'll see how well it holds.
Well, just to wrap up, David, when the US does indeed pull out its combat troops, that actually won't be the end of it, will it? What kind of commitment will the US still have in Afghanistan?
That's under negotiation right now. There's a bilateral security agreement, and the talks have been going on since for almost half a year now. Recently, because of the dispute over a Taliban office that opened in Qatar, President Karzai of Afghanistan has cut off the negotiations, so now they're at a standstill. And the negotiations are designed to create a strategic partnership between the United States and Afghanistan on security. And part of that will determine the number of troops that will remain. But now the U.S. has started indicating that they may go for the so-called zero option, which would be no troops. And that's because Karzai has been so difficult and has cut the talks off, and the talks are suspended right now, so no one knows what's going to happen or whether there'll be any troops or not. You may recall in Iraq, we were planning to leave troops there, but we did not because of the issue of legal jurisdiction.
Well, David, thank you so much for your insight. This is a fascinating story. We will be keeping up with you. For more on this story and others, please go to latimes.com.